So this is the 2025 off-season. There we go. Screen wasn't cooperating. And it's December 6th, so I'm a little bit ways into the offseason, but really have not done much yet. Not much has happened around the league. There's only been two minor free agent signings and a couple minor trades, but I've been messing around, exploring some things, but nothing big has happened. So this is kind of talking about my plan for the offseason. First things first, did have to hire a new manager since Bob Guerin retired, and I hired Robin Ventura. And relationship wise, he has a good influence on development. He has good relationships with the players. The one thing that really concerns me about him is he has lower influences and bad relationships with pitchers. As with a team that has struggled with pitching in this franchise, that's a little concerning. But there were issues with every guy that was out there, and so nobody looked like a flawless candidate. So I went with Ventura. He has an excellent reputation, and he's been in San Diego the last 3 years, where they made the playoffs in 23. They won the World Series in 24, and it doesn't say it here yet, but they made the playoffs last year as well. And I guess his contract was up or something, and they didn't renew it, even though he'd been pretty good. So got a guy who's had success. He's got good relationships. And again, here it says, for whatever reason, he has a poor track record when it comes to pitching staff. So hopefully my really good pitching coach will be able to help me overcome that. That's my one concern with Ventura, but we'll see how it goes. And budget wise, I have a bunch of money, $41 million to spend on free agents. But the thing that I have to watch out for is only $22 million for extensions the following year, because I have a bunch of guys that are going to be hitting arbitration for the first year: Lacey, Henderson, some other guys. And so I don't want to spend up to this 41 unless I'm, because of the escalating costs here. I'll just have no money for future years as Lacey and Henderson and guys like that move further and further into their arbitration years. So I'm not going to spend all that. I can adjust some of my budgets, like my scouting or development budget, take those down to open up more room if I want. But I have plenty of money to spend, but definitely won't be spending up to the full 41. I avoided arbitration with everybody, settled with players before we went to arbitration, which can be better for the players' morale. Rosario, my center fielder, set $11 million instead of going to arbitration. He's got 1 year team control left after this one. Larnack, $10.2 million, also has 1 year left. Hayes, his last year of arbitration, $8.2 million, and he wants, he's open to an extension at 30 years old. He would like 8 years, $21 million per year with an opt-out after 4 years. Now, he'd sign for well below that, but that's still, he's not a marquee enough piece for me. He's a solid player for me, but he's not elite enough for me as a small market team to sink $21 million into him for that long term at that age. Who else? Nick Matan, $4.2 million deal. He's got 1 year left of arbitration, then a free agent. So as you can see, a lot of important guys: Rosario, Larnack, Hayes, Matan, and then down here more Feltman, Hall. I have under team control for only another year or two, and then I need to make decisions on them now or at some point soon in terms of if they're going to be long-term pieces for me. So that's what's going on with the money. And then looking at where I want to improve, my offense was awesome last year. You can see here I was first or second in the AL in basically everything except, home runs and walks. I was a little lower, but OPS, runs scored, WOBA, WAR, everything. I was first or second in the AL. Just a really great offense. And as I keep repeating in these videos, I know my pitching has just struggled mainly because I give up so many home runs in Camden Yards. It's just crazy. So starters ERA was 10th. My overall ERA was only fifth in the AL, which is pretty good, but only 10th in starters ERA. And the bullpen ERA was also fifth. All of this was a lot worse until August when I went on a good run. But home runs allowed 14th. So first in strikeouts, so striking the kind of guys out. The BABIP was too high, which is some luck, but also defensively I was below average, which isn't normal for my teams. That was because a lot of injuries to a couple of my better fielders. So the main thing that I'm going to work on is pitching, and I don't want to no, necessarily lock into a long-term free agent deal with an elite pitcher. So been looking to trade, and really where I think I can deal from is my outfield depth. So, Austin Hayes is a guy for me. Um, and these lineups aren't like set. I was just kind of messing around with some stuff. But Austin Hayes is a guy for me who he only has 1 year of team control left, and I'm not going to sign him. And he's a leader. He's a captain in the clubhouse, kind of the leader of the team. He's a well above average league player, but not a star. But it's kind of time to think about possibly moving on from him because I just have so much depth. I have Dylan Carlson here, who can play left field every day and is one of the better hitters in the league. Rosario's in center. Larnack is, generally my DH normally. And then I've also got Reese Albert, who made the All-Star team last year. He ended up really trailing off in the second half, but he ended up at 2.8 WAR in his rookie season. And then I've got a bunch of other guys too. I've got Colin Hall here. Colin Hall, only 140 plate appearances, but put up a 146 runs created plus. Is that just a flash in the pan? Maybe, but he's probably earned the right to play more. Fabian is a guy who had a 96 runs created plus, almost league average in 223 plate appearances, but against lefties, which I need more left-handed guys, more left-handed batters. He was like a 110 runs created plus, so he's another guy. And then I've got Riley Green, who tore it up in AAA last year. I've got a couple other guys here in AAA outfield who are really good. This guy Jordan Williams put up just ridiculous numbers between Bowie and Norfolk last year. I mean, he put up like 5.1 WAR between the two levels. He's a Gold Glove defender if his bat can carry it. If his bat is good enough to get to the majors, we'll see. So I've got all these guys knocking on the door. So it makes sense to me to trade Hayes. And the one reason it might not make sense is that it then leaves me so left-handed. My team struggled against lefties last year because my team was too left-handed. So I need to. So if I move out Hayes, it's moving out my one right-handed hitting outfielder. Carlson's a switch. Everybody else that would make my team as of now is a lefty. So if I move out Hayes, I almost think that this might sound crazy and counterintuitive, but I think I might need to then also move out Larnack to open up my DH spot for a platoon of Hall, one of those lefties, and maybe Fabian, the righty. So that way, when I play against lefties, I can have a right-handed hitting DH in there because otherwise, Carlson is going to be playing as a switch hitter, but then Rosario and Albert will be my two starting outfielders, both as lefties. So that's why I think trading Hayes kind of is a domino effect to trading Larnack, which again, I know sounds crazy to say, well, I'm going to trade my guy who's my second best hitter last year. So that means I have to trade the guy who's my fourth best too, or I think it's opposite, fourth and second best. But I think I have the depth at outfield to do it. And I think if I get better against lefties, my lineup could be even better. So that's kind of my thinking of why I might deal those two guys. And I'd obviously be trying to bring in pitching. And I've got an interesting deal here with the Padres that should be saved that I haven't committed to yet. But so just what I would be getting is Luis Patino, who is a 26-year-old starter. He, put up 3 WAR, 4 WAR, 5 WAR, 3.5 WAR. He's a really good number 2 starter most years, it looks like, possibly a little better at times. And the thing that I really like about him is he's got great movement, which helps suppress home runs. And, his home runs are going to be low because he's in San Diego. Coming to Camden Yards, I bet his home runs per 9 doubles. But, I need guys who are either ground ball pitchers or have great movement or both. And Patino has that. But not only that, he's 26 and he's locked up for 3 more years at a really, really reasonable contract for a guy who is a really, really good pitcher. So he would be the main guy coming back. But I also would be getting Rylan Bannon back, who I traded the Padres last offseason. And the reason I would be doing that is because, again, I need guys who can hit lefties. And Bannon would basically be a platoon bat in my infield. I don't know exactly who he'd play for yet. He'd probably get a lot of bats instead of Nick Matan against lefties. Matan's my starting third baseman, but he struggles against lefties. Because as you can see here, Bannon against lefties in his career has 597 plate appearances and has a 118 runs created plus. he's a 99 runs created plus in his major league career overall. He struggles against righties, but against lefties, he's like, I don't know if it's fair to say, if you all-star level hitter against them, but he's almost 20% above league average as a hitter against lefties. So I'd be getting him back too. So this feels two big needs for me. A guy who can pitch towards the top of my rotation, who's good at suppressing home runs, and an infielder who can play second base or third base for me, depending on who I decide to bench against lefties, and help my team be better against left-handed pitching because I struggled a lot last year. Now, the price is super steep. Like, I'm getting a top-notch starting pitcher under cheap team control for the next 3 years, and Rylan Bannon's a decent infielder. So the top of the package is Austin Hayes, who again is only under team control for 1 more year, right? So it'd be different if he was signed for longer, but they're just getting Hayes for 1 year, and they want me to eat 65% of his salary, which for 1 year again isn't a big deal because I have so much budget room this year. They want me to eat $5.4 million. I'm okay with that. The rest of it is Owen Griffith, who is a guy who will pitch out of the back of my bullpen this year. He was a solid reliever for me in his rookie year. He is 27 now. But he was solid for me. He put up a 4.04 ERA, a 3.83 FIP, struck out over 10 guys per 9, and didn't give up too many home runs, which I'm always looking for. And he's a really good pitcher. He's not one of my top 2 bullpen arms. He's probably my 3rd or 4th best bullpen arm at this point. But I'm willing to give up relievers when I'm getting back a guy who's going to pitch in my rotation. But again, it doesn't get any cheaper. Rafael Marchand is my backup catcher, who's really good defensively and a solid hitter. He struggled last year, though. He only put up a 64 runs created plus. But I'd have to find another backup catcher, and Marchand is really a pretty ideal one with how good he is defensively. And then a couple prospects as well would be going in the steal. Mac Anglin, who's a good pitching prospect that I got from Toronto back in 2023. My scout thinks he could be like a league average starter, maybe middle of the rotation, I think is what he says. He's a useful major league rotation, but not like an ace, basically is what he says. But my concern about him is he's a fly ball pitcher with below average movement. In Camden Yards, man, that's just not going to work. So this is a guy who's obviously valued by other teams, and I don't think he's going to be as valuable to me as he is going to be in a trade because of this poor movement and fly ball pitcher. He's just going to get crushed in Camden Yards. I mean, last year he gave up 1.5 home runs per 9 in Norfolk. It was only 48 innings because he was in Double-A some of the year. But if you're giving that up in Norfolk, it's going to be real ugly up in Camden Yards. So I'm willing to deal him, even though he looks like he's going to be a solid major league starter. He's going to be better somewhere else than he's going to be for me. And then lastly is Jose Ocampo, he was a scouting discovery back in 2022 by my scout. And, he looks like he could develop really great discipline and maybe be an average bat overall. But the thing that's concerning is his catching position rating is only a 35. Now, he's got a 55 ability, only a 45 arm, and he's got intelligence, which is all things that could lead to him to getting better. But I don't know. I don't know how high his ceiling is here with how poor he is at his catching now. His contact rating, even if he maxes it out, not great. He's got great eye. So, if this guy takes it to the next level, he could come back to haunt me, but I'm really willing to deal him, I think. What is my scout thinks, he's kind of on the bubble for holding down a role in the majors. Look, he could develop into a top catcher if he shows some growth because he's only 20 and he's got intelligence, but he's not, he's going to have to field better because he can't play any other position. He doesn't have any other ability here for infield or outfield. And I just don't think he's going to develop into a good enough catcher for me to want him, even if he takes steps forwards with his hitting. So he repeated low A ball for me this year, second year there, and he put up a 36 runs created plus. So if he bombs again next year, he's probably not going to have as good a trade value. Could be my last chance to get value for him. So that would be the deal. Basically, Hayes and then Griffith, the bullpen piece, Marchand, the backup catcher, and 2 decent prospects. But I'd get back a guy who can pitch towards the top of my rotation, is under team control for 3 years for cheap, and a guy who will come in and mash lefties for me, which I need in Rylan Bannon. So, that would then again, as I was saying, kind of open up. I'd just be way too left-handed in my outfield and DH spot. So I would probably look for a way to deal Larnack. He doesn't have a ton of trade value now that he's making over 10 million this year. Teams are kind of hesitant to get him. So, and I don't want to trade him just to trade him, but we'll see what I can get for him. But then that would leave my outfield again as Carlson, Rosario, Albert, and then a platoon at DH with Hall at lefty likely, and Fabian or another guy that I could sign, or a couple other bats I have in the minor leagues as my right-handed DH. And then, of course, Bannon would come up and get into this mix with Bowser and Matan to play infield. So we'll see what happens there. I don't really know what I'm going to do with Larnack, but I think that Hayes trade is too good to pass up, considering what I'm getting back, how well it fits my needs, and that Hayes is a free agent after this year. But the only reason I'm hesitating is just because then I think it makes sense to trade Larnack to better balance my lineup of lefties and righties. And I'm just kind of dragging my feet here again on trading my second and fourth best hitters, but I think I can afford to. I think it'll improve my team long term. I think it'll won't really hurt my team this year, and it'll help my pitching a lot. So we'll see. I'll come back with another update after I make my decisions of what I'm going to do, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now.